Alright, for my fifth article, I chose music performance to create or recreate, and this is found in the American Music Teacher, and this article is by Benjamin D. Canton. And if you ever want to check it out, it looks like this. This is kind of a departure for the past few articles that I've been reading about. My main study is going to be on how music composition affects classrooms in secondary schools, middle school, and high school. So I kind of took a departure just for a break for me and kind of for the critiques that you all are reading. And this one's more about creating performance. Should it be exactly what's on the page, or should it be something that we're having kids interpret through the music? Canton did some really neat things in this study, although it's not really an intensive study on creating or recreating music. There's no surveys, there's really no numbers to it. It's almost an opinionative study, which I found really interesting considering everything else that I've done has been more study or survey, a lot of numbers. So this one was a lot different. It starts off with some quotes by Leonard Bernstein and later on from Copeland. If you read it, you'll see that I quoted the one that he has from Leonard Bernstein. So it says, Leonard Bernstein once said that to do the very best job of conducting, he had to imagine that he composed the score. That kind of sets off the whole article on him talking about creation or recreation. And as Bernstein says there, it's all about interpretation. And then later on, the quote from Copeland, if I can pull it up really quick. Well, there's a quote from Aaron Copeland later on that pretty much says the kind of the same gist of things in this article. Throughout the article, he talks about how we can have students create music and how we can have students recreate music. Talks about the performer taking notes from the composer, students writing down the different things that the composer has done in the music and how they can do them differently, how we can teach them differently to the students. I found that pretty interesting. The most important, or the most, I guess, important to me part of the study comes towards the end when Canton does start to talk about improvisation and composition and how we can really use that to better teach performance to our students. And it says it can be an excellent way to involve our students in dealing with sounds is to have them improvise and compose. It also talks about how that can be very intimidating for us as music educators and how it can be extremely intimidating for students, elementary, middle school, high school, and even college students. It can be intimidating. So it does talk about that and how students freeze up when you tell them to do something that's, not on the music, not on the page for them to see. But it does, Canton does say that it can be fun and stimulating, and it causes our students to think about sounds in ways that they may have not in previous to learning about this. A great checklist is in this article on some different ways to use composition and improvisation. I kind of highlighted a few because, we don't have to tell them to compose a piece of music just to get something out of it improvisation-wise or composition-wise. So a few of these Canton mentions are creating a story, just, to kind of give them a setting to see if they can create something new. It doesn't have to be anything fancy at all. Suggesting an ostinato that asks students to experiment with a melody, either in scale structures or chord structures, maybe if we're talking about major or minor. To use the pentatonic scale with the omission of the fourth and seventh scale degrees, it removes the resolution that a lot of times students have a hard time hearing or even understanding what we're talking about, especially if it's in middle school performance. Giving the students a set pattern or suggesting a stylistic approach. Take, for instance, if it's a piano student and they're playing a Chopin nocturne, maybe you can assign them a different nocturne, or maybe you can tell them to look into how a nocturne, what the style of a nocturne is, and have them write the beginnings of just like 2 measures of a nocturne. Some more specific ones, playing a Bartok peasant dance and have the students strive for the same feeling. There's a great middle school piece out there called Bartok Folk Song and Dance, and you can talk about how the style of that piece is important and how they can kind of create just a really simple melody in that same format. Suggesting two major chords to use throughout the piece. So this would work best maybe in jazz band. If you're in a piece of music and you're working on students improvising on a solo, you could have them just use two major chords, just go back between C and G, and having them just compose a really simple improvised melody. Changing certain measures in a notated piece, you could take any of the measures of a piece you're working on and just tell them to change them up just a little bit, and that would be improvisation. Or change the meter of a notated piece. And the last one I have here is to use question and answers, where the teacher plays a question and the student plays an answer. All kinds of parameters can be attached to this experience. And obviously that would work better for some of our more experienced students, but even in middle school you could do, I play quarter, quarter, half, and then they can answer with something just a little different, but that still uses those same rhythms. The checklist is really great. It's on the last page of the article, but there's a lot of different ideas that Canton gives that we can use to help, I guess, better have our students be better imagining different kinds of things in music, or just improvising different kinds of things to help them perform better. And like he says, and I totally understand this, it doesn't have to be great. Just because they're composing or improvising, don't expect it to be the best thing in the world, as long as they got something out of it. Even a small understanding of music more than they had before they started it, that means you were successful in that lesson. Again, I found this article really interesting, really different than the other articles I had read. I thought it was great. Feel free to give it a glance and check out my article critique. And I guess I will see you all in December. Thanks.